Hello, welcome to Module 3 of Edu 314. Today we shall be talking about research problems, research objectives, research questions, and research hypotheses. Research problem. The most difficult aspect of research projects for students when they want to choose a suitable problem is the research problem aspect. In the research report, the explanation of how a particular problem was identified is contained in the background to the study and statement of problem. In the background to the study, that is the former, researcher informs the reader that a research problem really exists and the nature of the problem. Researcher also informs briefly the readers why the problem is worthy of investigation. Here, when you are giving the background to the problem being studied, you have to tell us that of a truth, the problem really exists. For instance, you want to carry out a research on the effectiveness of jigsaw cooperative learning strategy on student academic achievement, maybe in political science. You want to know the effects of a particular method of cooperative learning on student academic achievement, and you want to compare it with that of the conventional lecture method. You tell your readers that a lot of research work had been done on the effectiveness of effectiveness of methods of teaching on student academic achievement in political science. But to the best of your knowledge, none of the methods talked about the effectiveness of jigsaw method of cooperative learning on student academic achievement. That is a statement of problem. You may even want to tell us that, what will happen in form of questions? What will happen if jigsaw cooperative learning method is used to teach students in political science or government? Would that be a significant academic achievement in student learning if cooperative learning strategy is used? We now move on to research objectives. The purpose and the detailed objectives are derived directly from the statement of the problem. The purpose is generally what the researcher wants to do and to achieve from the study. Here, the researcher declares his intention clearly. For instance, in the example I gave earlier, he said the purpose of this study is to investigate the effect of jigsaw cooperative learning method on student academic achievement in government. That's the purpose of the study in that area. The objectives, on the other hand, are specific elaboration. They are specific elaboration on the purpose. The objectives show in detail the variables to be examined, compared, and contrasted. Now let's look at the example I've been giving. Effect of the purpose, the effect of jigsaw cooperative learning method on students' academic achievements in government. Now your objectives now will read that to examine the effects of jigsaw cooperative learning method on student academic achievement, to examine the effects of conventional lecture method on student academic achievement, to examine the effects or the influence of gender on students' academic achievement. You have mentioned both dependent and intervening variables here. So that's the essence of the objectives. So the objectives is the detailed, explanation of, the purpose of the study. So, like I said, under the objective, you give the detailed explanation about the variables to be examined, compare, and contrasted. We mentioned academic achievement in both the two methods of teaching, that is, the jigsaw cooperative learning method and the conventional lecture method. Then we talk about the gender, that is male and female. So that is how to state the objectives. You get the full gist in your lecture material. Let's now move on to the next one, which is research question. Research questions. Many researchers coin their research questions from the research objectives. Research questions are testable, answerable, and perhaps measurable interrogations posed by the researchers to find solution to the problem. I say research question, you coin your research question from your research objective. Like I said, research objectives is the detailed explanation of how you are going to go about your research work. So it is from this your research objective, you now coin your research question. Naturally, research questions are mostly used by people in the arts and social sciences. But the way you are going to state it, we all get to know it. All other subsequent efforts in the research will take a cue from the clearly and carefully formulated research questions by the researchers. That is, from a research question, you get your research hypothesis. For instance, researchers formulate hypotheses based on research questions, designs an effective research instrument to collect data based on the research questions, analyzes data based on the research question. So you get what I mean? After you must have stated your research question, it is then you'll be able to fashion out your research instrument. What analysis are you going to, what method of statistical analysis are you going to use to analyze the data collected? We now move on to research. Now let's look at example. Before we move on to the next one, let's look at the example here. Like the other time, we talk about, the research objectives that to examine the effectiveness of jigsaw cooperative learning method and conventional lecture method on student academic achievement, to examine the influence of gender on student academic achievement using the two methods. Let's look at these two objectives to now point our research question. In this one, I will now say, is there any difference? Is there any difference in academic achievement between the students taught using jigsaw cooperative learning method and the student taught using conventional lecture method? You can see that it is in question form. Is there any difference from the objective? The second objective, you said to examine the influence of gender. You now say, is there any difference in academic achievement of male and female students? You get the gist now. So from your research objective, you get your research questions. And from research questions, you get your, from your research objectives, you get your research question. Let's now go to research hypothesis. A hypothesis is an expectation about events based on generalizations of the assumed relationship between variables. It is a tentative answer to a question or an educated guess to be subjected to the process of verification. A good hypothesis has several basic characteristics as follows. It should be reasonable. It should be consistent with known facts or theories. It should show relation between variables. It should be stated in such a way that can be tested and found to be probably true or false. And it should be stated in the simplest possible terms. Now, we've coined our research question from our research objective. We said, is there any difference between academic achievement, between student taught using cooperative jigsaw learning method and the conventional lecture method? Now, if you want to draft your research hypothesis here, you say you can use a null hypothesis. You can use null hypothesis. Okay, let's go to the next slide to get the gist better. Statistical hypothesis could be stated in either null form or in alternative form, which specifies the direction which will hold if the null hypothesis does not hold. Examples of null hypothesis based on our earlier example on integrated science. We said political science or government. There is no significant difference. I said, is there any difference in academic achievement between students taught using jigsaw cooperative learning method and the students taught using conventional lecture method? Here now, you can now see there is no significant difference in academic achievement of students exposed to the cooperative learning strategies and conventional lecture method in political science this time around, or in government. Now the other one, there is no significant difference in academic achievement of male and female students exposed to the cooperative learning methods and the other one exposed to the conventional method. So you can now see the difference between, your research question and your research hypothesis. And don't forget that we said you coin your research objective from the purpose of the study, and you coin your research questions from the research objectives. You can also coin your research question from a research objective, hypothesis. But it is better you coin your research hypothesis from your research question. You can also do so. You can also coin your research hypothesis from your research objectives. Because if your research design is experimental, you may not need research questions. All you need is what? Research hypothesis. And you just coin it direct from the research objective. With this, we come to the end of Module 3 of Edu 314. See you in Module 4. Do have a great day.